Ezra Ginsburg here from Hockey Manitoba. Pleased to be joined by Derek Laxdal, assistant coach with the Dallas Stars. Derek, thanks so much for taking some time and joining us today.
Oh, thank you, Ezra. Really appreciate it.
Before we get into your coaching career, I wanted to ask you about playing for the hometown Brandon Wheat Kings as a teenager. Just looking back at your time with the Wheat Kings, what stands out to you?
Well, the big thing for me was when I played the Wheat Kings, I came in at 17. I was traded from the Portland Winterhawks just after I turned 16, after I won the Memorial Cup there. I think it was 82 or 83. And, you know, it's Brandon has a place in my heart. Obviously, spent 2.5 years there and, you know, played for the World Juniors as an 18-year-old for Team Canada, won a silver medal. And just being a part of that organization, that historic organization. And, you know, I met my wife of 33 years from Rivers, Manitoba when I was in Brandon. And my daughters live there now, so I go back to Brandon quite often. So, you know, from my time being there, it's probably extended to this time now, and it sits well with me and my family.
And you've had such an interesting coaching journey that spans over 20 years and many leagues. And I wanted to start off by just asking you, how did it all start for you? How did you first get involved in coaching after your playing career?
Well, it's kind of a combination of just finishing up playing and getting into coaching. I was playing in England, and I wanted to become a coach in England, and I couldn't become a coach because I was an import, and you had to have a license to coach in England, and it was really tough to get. You almost had to go through the upper echelon of Hockey Canada, whatever they call the not the Masters, but the highest level you can get, and that takes years in Hockey Canada, especially back then. So I started taking my levels 1, 2, and 3. Then you advance 1 and 2, and started coaching with that. And met a gentleman named Don McKee, and Don McKee took a job in Odessa, Texas, in an old WPHL. And I was playing in Sheffield. He was coaching there. He just got fired, and after he took that job, he called me and wanted me to become a player assistant. So I actually left England with me and my 2 daughters and my wife, and we went back and started the coaching game there. And we were there for about 1.5 years, and then I took a job halfway through the year in Wichita, which was another organization that they fired the coach. And it was a great stepping stone for me because it opened up the doors and opened up my eyes to being a head coach in a minor league level. And then from there, I went to Idaho and coached 4 years in Idaho, I think, or 5, 2005 to 2010. We had a very successful run in Idaho in the ECHL. Won the league in 07, went to the finals in 10. And, you know, so that set the doors for the coaching realm for me.
And you just mentioned Idaho, and I wanted to ask you, how did that prepare you for your next move, which was to become, of course, the head coach of the Edmonton Oil Kings, where you also had a lot of success there as their coach?
Well, for me, back when I first started coaching, there wasn't a lot of room for assistant coaches. I think in Wichita, I didn't have an assistant. Actually, Don Jackson was a volunteer assistant for me for about a half a year. He went on to have a great career in Germany in the DAL. But when I went to Idaho, I didn't have an assistant coach. So I did everything. I ran the bench, I ran the forwards, I ran the defense, did every system: power play, penalty kill, 5-on-5 play, recruiting, apartments, travel. And if you're going to become a head coach, it's probably one of the best leagues to cut your teeth in because you have to do so much. Now it's changed. Now they have assistants and they have other people to help you. But for me, it was a really good look. And then in 2010, I had a chance to take a job in the American League, and I was hoping to get the job in Texas with Dallas because we were an affiliate of the Dallas or the Texas Stars, the Iowa Stars in the American League. It didn't come to fruition. So I wanted to get back and work with kids that have a little bit closer jump to the National Hockey League than the ECHL. Not a lot of ECHL players made that jump. So I was very fortunate. Tom Rennie was working for the Edmonton Oilers and they were looking for a coach for the Oil Kings. And I interviewed, got the job with Bob Green and Randy Hanch, and had a good run there. In the 3 of the 4 years, we went to the last 3 years, we went to the league final 3 times, won it twice, lost in the middle finals there in 3 times we went, played Portland all 3 times. And then in 14, we won the Memorial Cup in London, which was it's an incredibly hard trophy to win. It's probably the hardest trophy in all sports to win because you have to get through your league and then you have to get through 3 other champions to win it. And it's very tough, but I'm very lucky as a coach and a player to win that trophy. And then from there on, Dallas, I got another interview with Dallas for the Texas job, was there 6 years. And then we had a good run, went to the finals in 17, developing players for the Dallas Stars. So most of the players that I coach now have played for me in Texas. And then also they had the coaching change in Dallas, and they brought me up as an assistant. We went to the finals last year in the bubble and lost in Game 6 at Tampa. So, knock on wood, have been very fortunate as a head coach and a player to win championships and get to the finals, and just looking forward to building on those experiences.
And as you just mentioned, your first year as an assistant coach with the Dallas Stars, you go to the Stanley Cup Final. Unfortunately, you lose to the eventual Cup winner, Tampa Bay Lightning. What was that experience like for you, as a coach in that bubble? Because I think you would agree that was a once in a lifetime experience.
Well, you know what? For the average fan out there, the bubble is very tough. It was tough mentally on the coaches and the players, probably tough on the families and the children. It was one of the toughest things we've ever had to go through, but it just felt like Groundhog Day. Every day was the same. Get up, test, go to the rink, eat. Get up, test, go to the rink, eat, 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 eat. And so, talk about the COVID-15. I think I had the COVID-25, but it was tough. But once you got into it, once you got through that kind of playing round, and you got in the first round, it was playoffs because you're playing every second day. And I guess the best thing is you didn't travel. So your players are probably more well rested. And it went, it's like anything. It's like the season. The first month is really slow. Then after they hit the halfway point, it goes pretty quick. After we got through the second round, it was downhill and everything went pretty quick. But it was a great ride. It was a great run, a great experience with the players to see what they were going through. And then you think about that, you come home for a couple months and then you go right back into it. We went right back into the training camp. And then last season was incredibly tough, playing those 56 games in a small period of time. And what we went through with COVID and that snowstorm, we ended up playing 44 games in 73 nights, which no other team in the NHL went through that. And it just, it did hurt us. And plus we were pretty short from the get-go.
And I wanted to ask you about Rick Bowness, someone who's very familiar to hockey fans in Manitoba, going back to the Winnipeg Jets 1.0, and a person who's very well respected as you are in coaching circles. What in your opinion makes Rick Bowness such a great hockey coach?
Well, obviously personality, his character. You talk about a guy who's just a fun-loving guy to be around. Always brings a great light mood to the room. Just very upbeat and just happy. And he builds a great relationship with his coaches and his players. And he's really fun to be around. He's just one of those guys. When he walks in the room, he's just free living and just fun. He always likes driving his vet to the rink. He's kind of that beach boy, California, Nova Scotia, Winnipeg, all tied into one. Just fun loving guy. Great guy. Great experience. Been around the game for 5 decades. Coached a lot of great players. Been in the NHL since 82, 83. Just a lot of hockey knowledge has been around. It's just great. It's just great to sit and pick his brain and just talk about all the different experiences that he's been through.
And for all the coaches watching, I wanted to ask you, like, how important is it to know when to push the right buttons for players, especially younger players?
Well, I think that's important. That's the art of coaching, right? Is just how to and when to push the buttons of the players, and it's different. Every day that the game's changing, the players are changing. The days of the dictator, the tyranny, just the yelling and screaming at players, those days are gone. You can have a blow up here and there, and you can raise your voice, but at the end of the day, I think you have to earn the players' respect, and the players have to respect you. I think that's the biggest thing before you start getting into those areas. You just have to, they have to trust you know what you're doing, and you have to trust them and what they're doing. I think that's a huge factor in all areas of in sports in general. But the players know what to do. They they're well, but it's just it's the little subtle changes you make in your game. It might not be on the ice, it might not be behind the bench, it might be in your practice, might be in the dressing room. It's just a little tweak that you do can really change the outcome of your team.
When you're talking to high performance coaches or you're doing seminars, what are some of the main themes? I know that a lot of topics are covered, but what are some of the main takeaways that you'd like to give your high performance coaches or prospective high performance coaches?
I think the biggest thing you have to do is they're coaches just like you are. The only difference is you coach at a different level, and at the end of the day, you're talking to coaches who are dealing with players you might see down the road 5 or 10 years. So what you do and how you help develop these players can really help the coaches down the road coach these players. And I think it's important to know that they are important. They're part of the hockey cycle, and they are important to to the outcome of the sports at any age.
And I'm sure you've received this question before, but who were one or two coaches that had the biggest impact on your coaching career? Because as we mentioned earlier, like you've been coaching for over 20 years now.
Well, one guy that really jumps out the mind is Don McKee. Don McKee is a guy that's worked with Hockey Canada for years. He's an evaluator. He does a lot of work. He does a lot of the corrections on the tests after coaches do their HP1, HP2. He's a very entertaining presenter. He's got a lot of good advice for coaches. I speak to him quite often. He's part of my Memorial Cup championship as a coach. When I coached Edmonton, he was in London. He was part of that. He's been down to Dallas, so we talk quite a bit. The other guy was a coach who way back at John Brophy was a tough player and a tough coach. I coached when I played for Toronto. He taught me the value of working hard and respect. And I think that's really kind of carried over to what I do now. But all the guys I've worked with, a lot of players and a lot of coaches, just you take a little bit from everyone you work with and try and implement it into what you do as a coach.
And the final question I wanted to ask you, you mentioned, coaches giving advice. If you could give one piece of advice or a couple of pieces of advice for new coaches or young coaches in Manitoba, what would that advice be?
Well, the biggest thing I would do is always be willing to learn, always be willing to network with other coaches and ask questions and talk and try and grow your book, try and grow your foundation as a coach. I think that's important. And never quit growing it. That's one thing as coaches we always do is we're always talking to each other and always trying to network and trying to get better and steal what other coaches are doing. If there's something you like and you see, try and implement it into your game. And don't be afraid to make mistakes because we all make mistakes as coaches. And a good example of that is we tried to implement a system starting this season and we actually changed it after 10 games because our players weren't comfortable with it. So I think you have to be willing to make changes and you have to be willing to make the changes back if you don't like them.
Coach, thank you so much for taking some time to talk to us. Have a great rest of the summer and best of luck to you and the Dallas Stars in the 21-22 season.
Well, thank you very much, Ezra. I appreciate that. And there's a good point there. Being a coach, don't forget you're a family member first.
Thanks so much.
All right. Take care.